Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. On this podcast, Laura
and Shelby, both board-certified nurse coaches, show you how to make as much money as you want in private practice as a nurse coach. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. It is Laura and Shelby here. Today, it feels like it's been half a century since we've been able to record together. And this morning, the universe was conspiring against us, maybe for the first time ever, with tech hoopla. But we are here, we made it, and we are excited today to bring you a potentially more casual episode. It's been a while since we've done like a Q&A or an interviewee type questions with one another. And we have a lot of new listeners that might not. I know of some people, Laura, that find our podcast and go all the way back to episode 1, and God bless you if that is who you are. And also maybe we just update you with who we are today and how we would answer these questions today. So I'm excited to do this one and just like hang out today on the podcast.
Because it's been over 2 years, right? We're like at 130 something, and we did each week. So,
I think we went live in like February of 2022. So about 2.5 years. Yeah, long time.
We've changed a lot. Yeah.
I joke with people that go back to episode 1. I was just talking with someone last week, and I was like, oh, so you've like gotten to see our evolution kind of like on hyperspeed, being like with that perspective. Because she was like, I was inhaling every podcast to work, from work, brushing my teeth, the whole 9 yards. And I was like, what an interesting perspective that would be to fast forward through someone's journey for 2 years. That would be crazy.
Totally. Yeah. Every year you ask we're going to kind of do some interview questions today and just see what comes up. So it'll be super spontaneous in the moment, which is great. But I feel like 2 years ago, these answers probably would have been totally different.
So I have a little bit of a heads up because I looked for these questions, asked our best friend ChatGPT of like what we should do. And some of these I was like, oh, I would like have to really think of the answer being put on the spot. So if there's any major lag, we have a wonderful podcast editor that will edit out the silence for you. But how about, do you mind going first, Laura? I can pick one and ask you.
Sure.
Okay. So one that kind of jumped out at me when I was putting it together was, what are you most passionate about in your work, and how did that happen? How did that passion develop?
Gosh, that's hard.
We're doing a lot of work right now, so I know you have a lot of options to pull from.
I know. Yeah. I'm going to just think about what I'm most passionate about right now. Well, I'll tell you what happened. So you all know that we launched Nurse Life Coach Academy. We just got final approval not that long ago. It was super stressful process for me. And I've since figured out why it was super stressful. And I'm happy to share about that too, if it's relevant. But I was in my bedroom, and, Shelby and I have been championing private practice for 6 years because that was the correct path for Shelby and I. And so for any other nurse that felt like that was the correct path for them, I felt really good about that. 2020 happened. So many medical freedom nurses joined because they were forced to not be able to work at their hospital. And so I felt really good about that. But then something happened probably since I moved across the country, and I'm treated better here in the state that I live for my medical decisions. And I was like, I don't want to just help good nurses leave. I want to help good nurses in general on whatever path is best for them. And Nurse Life Coach Academy provides a path to multiple places. And that feels really good because I feel like, Shelby, you and I talked about as we get older, as we have health challenges, and you've been in the hospital more in the last 3 years than your whole life. It's like, I want a good nurse to take care of me and my family, and a nurse coach who is working in intensive care, a nurse coach who's working in ER, a nurse coach is working in anything is going to be more resourced, more effective, more compassionate, more empathetic, healthier, and stronger. And then I remember getting really teary-eyed about that and thinking, for me, it's the word God, but I was like, oh, God's having us create this other path because there's more to the story. And so for me, I feel like my sense of like our potential impact in the world is much bigger as soon as that certification went live. And I'm still super passionate about private practice, and that's going to still primarily probably be my day-to-day, but I feel really honored to have a hand in creating something where it could be more than that. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just more impact. Like it's 1,000 times more impact than we previously had.
Yeah, and I know we haven't had a lot of time to really unpack this offline
Yeah.
yet, but the like my personal experience with the nurses in the hospital in the past 3, 4 years, between being in the ICU to delivery, like all the things, like my story is greatly impacted by the nurses who took
Yeah.
care of me. That, and I'm like, it's really even it's still, I'm also pretty pregnant in this moment right now, so like emotions run high, but it's hard to reflect on without getting emotional about it. And like the passion, I think for me too, is like it's really cool that we can offer this like insanely low ticket way for a nurse to upgrade their life
Yes.
for their perspective. And if you are listening to this and you're like, Shelby, I can't do one more day in the hospital, like I still believe that a lot of really great nurses ended up in the hospital when they have a greater capacity to serve the world in a different way too. Like
Right.
there's so much nuance to all of it. And if you would have asked me this question 5 years ago, because I was asked this question, a version of it 5 years ago, they're like, what would you tell burned out nurses? How would you tell, what advice would you give? And I was like, I would tell them to quit. I would tell them
Right.
to quit. And that was greatly influenced by my own perspective. But luckily now that answer is a lot bigger than what it used to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. I have less resentment towards the medical industry.
We've had
Um,
space. Yeah.
we've had space to heal a little bit.
Yeah.
So it also just having some conversations with different nurses who are bringing nurse coaching into the organization, or just nurses who say, I really love my floor. I love my hours. I love my shift, and I love my boss. And I also want to do that part time and do something else part time, because I know I can't do that 36 hours a week, or I know
Yeah.
I shouldn't be doing that 40 hours a week. Like if I could do that 20 or 24 hours a week, I can do that really well, but I also want to do something else. And so that wasn't the case 3 years ago. 3 years ago, it was very much more black and white. There was a lot of wounded nurses that felt betrayed by their profession based on
Yeah.
what was happening with COVID. COVID was such a big stressor. So I think we've come out of a little bit of we come out through the eye of the needle with this approval for certification, and it's like the skies are blue. We have a chance to like do some other work in the world, and that is bigger than me. I think it's like power from purpose instead of power by achievement. And I think
Hmm.
that I got my power from achievement at the beginning of my practice 5 years ago, and that won't work anymore here. In fact, I'll burn myself out if I try to get it from that.
Yeah.
And I remember our mentor saying, because I messaged him like a month and a half ago, and Shelby, you were worried about me. You're like, just take some more time off. I'm like, I'm burnt out, like in a big way. Like coaching seems like bullshit to me. And there's still a lot more work to do. Like we're in it. It's not like I can
Hmm.
quit. And he's like, yeah. At this time, you just got to really tap into your impact. That's the only thing you
Hmm.
have. And I'm like, oh, okay. Let me try that for a bit to get through. And now that we're through, it feels good. Feels really
Yeah.
good.
I wonder if we'll ever come to him with something that he's like, yeah, that's a problem. We haven't found it yet.
I think it's his job to not to just
He's
never react.
also, yeah, his experience. He's probably like, these are like little tiny little problems. I
Yeah.
promise. Yeah, it's
If we came to him, we were like, "Hey, we're $10 million in debt because we like invested in this business that went belly up." He'd be like, "Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
we've got some work to do."
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good
All
answer.
right.
Good answer.
I'm going to pick one of these for you. Let me see. Ooh, what fears have you had to confront in your journey, and how have they shaped you?
I love fear. I love talking about
Oh,
fear.
yeah, you do. Let's do it.
um, this even actually came up again, and it was very surprising to me. How sneaky fear can be. So, like on the surface level, that fear makes sense. Of like, I've had to confront my own mortality repetitively since becoming a nurse coach, through my own health journey in the past few years. And when you confront mortality in that way, it's very holistic. You're going to get to address it in kind of all areas of your life. And I have a lot of peace I still have an insane amount of peace to where like if I were to die tomorrow, then I can feel really good about the work I did in the world, the impact I had in the world. Like it is 100% incomplete, right? We're in the middle of launching the academy. We're in the middle of so much. It would be incomplete, but I feel really good about the effort that I've poured into it over the years and that I went for it and that I wasn't too scared. Like I just did it anyway. And more recently, this is like even kind of hard to like put into words, but I was meeting with my somatic practitioner and kind of Laura just spoke of like, 6-8 weeks ago throwing up the red flag of like, I'm burned out in a really big way. I was talking to my somatic coach and I was like, I'm feeling really triggered over stupid things, like really dumb things that usually don't get me upset. Like, not even people, but like spreadsheets and tech stuff in our business. Like, it is just causing this huge response in my body. And I'm having to like fight the urge to shut down. And so we were kind of like pulling on the thread a little bit. And at the core of it was the fear of being unworthy. The fear, like I've had this fear of unworthiness kind of like pop its head up over the past 12 months. And I don't know where it stems from. I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I always am just kind of just like setting it in the corner and like, okay, you'll make sense when it makes sense. That's fine. And every time a tech thing happens, every time we find a hole somewhere in our business, every time whatever, it's like recapping on this fear of like, see, you're not worthy. See, here it is again. See, here it is. See, here it is. And so like I'm getting triggered over spreadsheets, right? So I was really kind of dumbfounded in that session of like, here it is again. And it's really sneaky this time. I feel like when I first started my personal development, things were loud and grabbing my attention and like, Shelby, you need to work on your people pleasing. And Shelby, you need to work on your money mindset. And Shelby, you need to work on your confidence. And those were like big blaring red signs. And now that I've done so much inner work, the voices kind of get louder and fear has evolved for me to be smaller and quieter. And I don't say this to be dramatic, but I told you this yesterday of like tech stuff makes me for real want to quit. Like tech stuff is so challenging for us in our business in this particular moment. And it's not a rational response to be like, I'm going to burn my whole business now because I couldn't get my podcast mic to work today. But like, that's how real it feels. So it's, it's interesting that like how much I coach around fear, how much I've worked on my own fear, big fear, small fear, like how sneaky it still is this far in. And it just gave me a really big appreciation, or it was a really great reminder actually that like fear doesn't go away. That's not the goal. No. So you have to, my brain automatically takes that as like fear gone, good. And it was just a healthy reminder of like, you're going to be working with fear until the day you die because you're human and you have an ego. Like, here it is again, tend to it. And we will continue to put one foot in front of the other. But to answer the second question here of how has this shaped you? I think it makes me gritty as hell. Like
yeah, it does.
We have the willpower of 1,000 bull elephants over here. Like
us together is frightening. Actually,
I know. We're just like, even if we're in the hole, I'm like, give me another shovel. I'll just keep digging. Like, we're already here. Give me the shovel. So
like, oh, this massive thing's broken. We'll just create a whole new one of like this thing.
Yeah. So entrepreneurship there, I think that, and also too, you and I have been in it long enough to where we've been able to ride a few full circles and a few waves. And I just was really hoping that like eventually you get to like unlock the level of the game where it's just really chill for like, I don't know, 5 years, but it's not. It's not.
I'd take 5 weeks.
At
5 weeks at this point. Yeah. That would be just so cool to have 5 weeks. It would be great. Of nothing big. Yeah.
I'm still holding out for 2025 for like a grassy patch, a green field of flowers. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I can feel that. I sense that actually. I really sense that's, I think that next spring and summer is going to feel that way for us. I'm saying it right now. I'm decreeing it on the Lionsgate portal today.
Yeah, today. No better day. Oh, all right. How about, And in the same vein as grittiness and bullheadedness, what challenges have you faced, Laura, that have tested your resilience, and how did you overcome it?
Whew, man. All right, let me think.
I guess personal or professional.
Right. I feel this is so strange to say out loud, but I will say with 100% certainty that the most painful moments in my entire life had to do with relationships changing or ending, like by far,
Mm-hmm.
more than anything else.
Yeah.
More than money problems, more than hard work at school, hard at work in business. And this last year, there's been so many relationship stuff that was deeply, deeply painful that I worked through with Leon for 6 months. I thought we'd be doing like cool spiritual stuff. No, we were just working on my relationship stuff. And I remember him saying to me in Jahari's window, he's like, I think we're in that part of the window where neither one of us know what it is. And I'm like, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And so what I found, the challenges that I face with relationships is in some ways, my go-to is to try to see my part to a fault. So
Mm-hmm.
if there's any conflict or hurt feelings, or especially when someone quote unquote does me wrong, I really want to find a way to blame myself because I have control over that. And
Yeah.
then if I have control over myself, then I don't have to feel the way that that experience made me feel again. And now I'm realizing that people are people and that their actions tell you who they are. And it's not who you thought that they are. It's just who
Mm-hmm.
they are when they make an action. And I vow from this point forward to take their actions at face value, to move faster with the way I deal with it and to not let it fester ever again, personally or
Mm-hmm.
professionally. And I think that will make me more confident in hiring. It'll make me more confident in letting go of people who work with me, even on my farm or in our business. And I can like rest, like I could even start to feel really confident in that, like to really trust that I can evaluate an action quickly, do a head to toe in myself and see if there's anything of my own stuff that I need to address and make a decision instead of trying to find a way to take the whole burden and make it okay.
Yeah. I think this is you and I's common weak point
Yeah,
is
I agree.
we do this, both of us do this pretty intensely, and it's a really easy way for us to end up in a vortex. And oh, that could be, yeah, I that lesson, I just feel it as you're reflecting on it. That was a painful one
Yeah,
for you this year and for us this year. It
yeah,
was, God, it's such a, like that cliche advice of like, when you know, like, I guess in the reference of like when you should fire somebody in your team, in this, like, when you know, do it, like take action immediately.
yeah.
And Laura and I are kind of known for taking action really fast, and we
Everywhere
didn't.
else.
Yeah, and we
Everywhere
didn't.
else.
And it, holy moly, we are trying to like milk the most out of that lesson so that we don't have to do it twice, because it
Yeah,
was, I'm still raw from it.
me too.
Yeah.
And then I think the term that comes to mind is naive loyalty, which I've had in every romantic relationship I've ever been in. Evan reflected back something to me. We did a couples coaching thing. Well, we facilitated and we did this exercise. And it was 3 things we really admire about the other person. And he said to me, I really admire how carefully you weigh everything and you're always looking for things to be fair. So like fair is one of my values, like
Mm-hmm.
like always like trying to get a holistic approach and meeting somebody at 50-50 in whatever way I can
Yeah.
and everywhere, but like these few shadow areas that don't work that way for me
Mm-hmm.
because I just have naive loyalty to make it 50-50 to
Yeah.
not have a feeling. So, I mean, I feel like every entrepreneur that has a team, this is the lesson that you learn. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even as I like reflect on to our, whenever we originally started hiring a team, like years ago, there were so many people that were the wrong people that we just,
Yeah.
oh my God. Yeah, that could be a whole rabbit hole in of itself. But the quote that I think it was like Cody Sanchez or Alex Hormozy online, that was like, when someone acts weird within the first year of you hiring them, believe it and act appropriately. And I was like, got it. I wish I would have known that in 2023, but got it now here in
Yeah.
2024.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, totally. And I think just like trusting your own inner knowing is really, really good. And I feel like we're going to be hiring more people at the farm. We will probably be hiring onto our team next year. So like, this is not a lesson that's going to go away. We're just going to get a lot better at it. And so I think that the universe, God gave it to us so that we could learn it really painfully, learn it well before
Mm-hmm.
we hire a massive team or we expand in a bigger way, because I think that would suck. Right. Like we have a really
Yeah.
clear way we're going to handle this moving forward. And the litmus is, was that weird? You can, if you think it's weird and I think it's weird, it's done. First year,
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a
Yeah.
good policy and procedure. We'll write that down.
If you get weird vibes, I get weird vibes. Yeah, for sure. And I also think a little nuance here that's also helpful, because Laura and I love very deeply as well. And I think
Mhm.
that this is where like the naive loyalty can come into play, because if I love you and care about you, and I can love and care about a stranger on the street. Like I can make up anything to justify anything. And that just because someone didn't work on your team doesn't mean that they're a bad person, doesn't mean that you have to not like them, like all of
Yeah, it
these
doesn't mean that you
things.
don't love them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
To where for some reason in my brain, those two things had to like be true together, of like, I have to hate you to fire you. And that's like unrealistic and a dumb belief
Yeah.
that I had. So that was helpful to hear too. I remember asking our mentor about that. And I was like, can you let somebody go and still be friends? And he's like, yeah, I let my wife's friend go, and like we
Yeah.
went on vacation this summer together. And I was like, okay, I believe you. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, these are good. We're like a little coachy session. I'm going to feel so much better after this episode.
Yeah. First call of the day. It helps. It helps.
Okay. Let's see. What values are most important to you, Shelby, and how do they influence the way you live and work?
Oh, great question. I have them written down over here on my wall. um, you guys know by now that we are Leon Vanderpool junkies. We love Leon. We've both recently been through his certification, deep coaching this year, and you do a lot of values work when you are
Mm-hmm.
inside of that course. And hope, purpose, and love are my three top ones, and then like freedom's a close fourth. And if I have hope, I can do anything. This actually even ties back to my human design. I actually live on Port Hope Street. Like it is just everywhere for me all the time. And hope is, I can crawl out of any hole if there's hope. But for like purpose, and I really think that like coaching is a way for me to love people, not just like in a romantic way or in a friendship way, but like deeply witness and be able to love people and call them forward in the same way that I have been by coaches in my corner. I love being able to love on people that way. But how I kind of like leverage these values in my day-to-day life or even in decision making, it's helpful. And I'm kind of like sad that I didn't know this earlier in my life. But whenever I go to make a big decision, or like Rob and I talk about moving still. I know we've moved twice in the past 2-3 years. Like we're a little unhinged in that department. But whenever we go to like commit to a transition or commit to having another baby or whatever the thing is, it's like, does it meet the criteria of those three things? Like, is
Mm.
it in the vein of those three things? And twofold there, of when I was in deep coaching, in DCI, in deep coaching intensive, I had a peer of mine of whenever I was being coached, and like I would get really nitty gritty into the problem. And it was really, I was kind of like in the drama of it all, of like, and then they said, and then I said, and then this happened. And she was like, okay, can we pause? And can you bring they call them spiritual values in Leon's
Mhm.
course. Can you bring your spiritual values here and set them at the table? And what would it look like to view this circumstance through the lens of love, through the lens of hope, through the lens of purpose? And that was really helpful for me to like be able to pull out of the soup and like look at things from a different perspective. And what I learned through that was that I'm always like giving all of the love to everybody else, and I wasn't giving any to myself. So it's like
Mm.
I can love on you and make excuses for you and give you the benefit of the doubt, but then also can I like do that in some way for myself too? Can I put my mask on first and then help you put on yours? And I really love values assignments. They're simple and impactful and powerful, and like even this year alone has radically changed how I make decisions. Like it's easier for me when things feel murky to bring those three things into the table. Like, okay, does
Yeah.
it check any of these boxes? Does it fuel the bigger life goal here of living in alignment, versus like winging it, which I'm pretty good at, but it's nice to have a little bit of a protocol in place too.
Yeah. I wish we could, having talked to so many nurses on the phone this week who are contemplating, eh, excruciatingly contemplating joining Nurse Life
Yeah.
Coach Academy in a way like it's a life or death decision, in a way where there's this insane risk and they have to really think about it. And it's so interesting because it's just been so long since you and I have felt that way about any decision that I almost have
Yeah.
to like figure out a way to, we have to coach. We do this in proposals, but like from one perspective, it's like insane not to,
Right.
for lots of things we do in our life. Like it's
Hmm.
insane not to try XYZ. It's insane not to take a risk. And yet our society calls us insane. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gosh, I was talking to a nurse coach that graduated in 2022 earlier this week, and
Hmm.
same thing to where like she's so uncomfortable in the not trying or the not exploring what it could be. She's not uncomfortable enough because she's
Right.
not doing anything with it, right? But there's like something about following through on trying that's causing her to pause, and I'm also so curious about that because the way I view it, I'm like, I have to know. Like I have to try, and I can always change my mind in 4 months if it's not going to work or it's not for me or whatever. But like the not trying haunts me so much more than the potential risk it could
Same.
ever it could ever be.
And I've wanted to quit so many times on things. Well, think of like childbirth. Every woman who's had childbirth and had labor pains, there's a moment where you want to quit or die.
Mhm.
And then the most wonderful thing ever happens. And so I see that over and over again in my life. Like if it gets really, really difficult, then it's time to see it through because there's probably something extraordinary on the other side. And so, yeah, agreed. My fear of feeling like I didn't fulfill my purpose when I'm dying is bigger than any fear of failing or making a wrong decision while I'm living.
Yeah, totally. The box gets really small really fast.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
does. And
Awesome.
I mean, our community, I'm sure, has witnessed enough dying people in the world through traditional nursing. Like, you've heard people say this of like, I wish I would have spent more time with my family or not worked as much, or I wish I would have gone for that thing or told that person how I really felt, or like whatever the thing may be. I think that when you reflect back, it'll probably feel so much smaller than it does right now. If you've never done a deathbed meditation, I would do that. If you're listening to this and this is like
Yeah,
talking to you in some way, I would go Google one. They're everywhere. But that would be a good way for a test run before you get to the real day.
yeah.
Yeah.
Doing one once a year, I can already feel things I could probably say to family members that I haven't said lately, even just reflecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good canary in the mine if there's anything unsaid, undone that wants to happen. I think that's a
Totally.
fantastic tool.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Do we
All
want
right.
to
What's
do
our
one more each
Yeah, I
and
was
keep
like,
it
what's our
short?
time? We'll
Okay.
we'll we'll keep it cute. If you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self, what would you say?
I have a pithy one and I have a deeper one. In your 20s, be naked as much as possible because you look so good. Just walk around naked and enjoy it because it's never going to get better than that. That's what I always say regarding body image. But I think a more, for me personally, the first thing is you're not that important. People aren't thinking about you. So you just don't have to be self conscious. You're just not
Yeah.
that important. Two, I would say, knowing now like my deep, deep need for significance. It's like a part of my human design, it's part of my personality. That deep need for significance, if used appropriately, is so good for the world, but if used inappropriately, is so destructive for me. So I think if I could go back, I would describe what that is and then give younger Laura other options to explore that.
Mm.
Yeah, those are my
Mm-hmm.
two.
Mm-hmm. I'll answer the same question.
Yeah.
I think if I could go back in time, that kind of two things. I ran from my feelings like the plague my whole life until I was probably 28 or 29 years old. And I wish someone would have had the balls to tell me to go get help for that sooner, because
Mm,
it was knowing just like the emotional freedom that I have now versus then. Like I was so ill-equipped. I had no idea. I just didn't have any idea. And then I had a really high stress job of being a bedside or ER nurse, and it just layer and layer and layer and layer and layer. It just got worse and worse. I don't know. I don't know for certain, Laura, that like repressed emotions are linked to my aneurysm in any sort of way, shape, or form. But like,
hmm
I really think that like, I mean, I would feel full on heavy chest pains like with patient loss or boys breaking up with me or whatever the thing may be, and I just wish that I had a better way to deal with that, because I think that they're correlated in some way. I'll never know, but I think that they're correlated in some way.
Yeah.
So for that, and then also too, I've always had kind of like my head in the clouds of like an alternative dreamer of like I always wanted to have like a bigger impact and to, I don't know, not necessarily like be on stage, but I wanted to work with people in a meaningful way. And I thought traditional nursing was the path for me. And I just want to like tell younger Shelby that like it's okay that it's not. Like you don't,
Yeah.
everyone tells you you're good at this, that this is your purpose, that you found your thing and you're awesome at it, but that it's okay, that you don't agree with them. You can still be good at this thing and also really excellent at something else, and that you'll find it here soon.
Yeah. That's well said. I like the saying, just because you can and you're good at it doesn't mean you should.
I know how many like wonderfully wonderful people are trapped in a box because of that, you know, like
Oh, like 80% of every MD in the country.
I know,
I know. And we need them. And so,
I
yeah,
know.
I think that, yes, it's most human beings are in a prison of their own making, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Oof. All right, folks. Well, I hope this was fun to listen to. If you played along and answered these questions on your own, pop in the Facebook group. Let us know what you answered. We would
Yeah.
love to hear. And we will see you same time, same place next week. Bye, everybody.
Awesome. See you guys.